We're going to have the land acknowledgement, of course, and then we'll proceed from there.
So yeah, I'd like to greet everybody. Welcome to East and West Learning Connections. I'm Wang, the founder and president of the organization. It is a federal registered nonprofit organization based in Toronto, run volunteers. We create learning, communicating, and volunteering opportunities to the public. Like tonight, we collaborate with the National Poet Laureate George Elliott Clarke to present this 5th edition of 5 poets breaking into song to you. And we'll have 5 talented poets who have a very diverse cultural background and a fabulous musician, composer, and a singer here to entertain you both intellectually and sensationally. Thank you very much, our artist friends, for coming. And my special thanks to George. This is the 5th time George uses his influence, resources, and creativity to bring poets and musicians together. And so we'll have this opportunity to enjoy the beauty of poetry and music. Thank you very much, George. And we're so happy to work with you for the 4th time on this project. I'd also like to thank Jovial Si, our member and volunteer at East and West Learning Connections, come to co-host tonight together with George on a very special day for yourself. And we have the luxury to have a poet laureate as our technical support tonight. And Anne is Misaga's first poet laureate, but tonight she just come volunteer to give us this help. Thank you, Anna. And I'd like to take this opportunity also to invite everybody on the call tonight to join East and West Learning Connections in one way or another. Be our member or volunteer or donor. We wish we could have your ideas, talents, input to help us make learning and connections happen across different communities. Thank you very much. Enjoy the evening. And I'll give the time to George and Jovial. First, Jovial will read us a land acknowledgement.
Yes, thank you, Yin. Thank you, George. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So today we would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Mississauga, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee. We also fully embrace and respect that Toronto is governed by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississauga, and Haudenosaunee. This treaty requires them and invites any subsequent newcomers to share the territory and protect the land in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect.
George, now it's all yours. Take it away.
I believe George must be in a pensive mood to reflect on the tradition of our territory and the First Nations, that as a poet laureate, somehow he lost his words.
Well, actually, Jovial, I need to say that I was, in fact, reflecting and thinking about the history of the first peoples, the cultures and civilizations of the first peoples, and how much all of us who now inhabit this glorious country of Canada owe to them. And I'm not going to be political. I'll just say that there are many bills past due that need to be paid and paid in full as soon as possible. That's myself speaking as a humble taxpayer and citizen, and also someone who is part Indigenous. I'll say very quickly, definitely part Cherokee and probably part Mi'kmaq, just so everybody knows who I am and where I'm from and what I stand for. Anyway, I am so happy, and I want to follow up what Yang just said a few moments ago as well. I am so happy to be sharing this evening with 5 glorious poets. with Dee Dee Jackson, with Jovial Si as the amazing co-host that she is, as has been demonstrated already. And also, I
Thank you.
want to thank Yang as well, and the East and West Learning Connections. This is the fourth time that we've put on this project together. It couldn't exist without EAWLC. I love everything that EAWLC stands for. We do need to bring East and West together. There are too many divisions in the world. And this is the greatest way to do it, through the arts, through music, through poetry. And that's what we're going to be in for tonight. We're going to be giving an example to everybody around the world, not just in Toronto, but around the world, to the UN and all the international agencies, on how you bring people together. And it's through celebrating what we share, which is essentially the emotions that we all have about being human, about loving our children, loving each other, loving our families, and that's always what's most important, and helping each other survive against all the calamities that we have facing us, environmental, also disease, also potentially, I hate to say it, hate to mention it, famine, because of all the other crises that are going on in the world right now. So everyone, please enjoy tonight. I want to celebrate the poets. I want to celebrate Dee Dee Jackson, maestro extraordinaire, and the songs that Dee Dee has brought into the world through the wonderful poetry of the poets that we have with us this evening. So with that, and I know I'm supposed to be as good a co-host as Jovial, but I'm not. I may as well say that right now. So what are we doing next?
Yeah, I think why don't we just introduce those fantastic poets? And also, I can't wait to listen to Dee Dee Jackson's amazing songs.
Jovial, that's a perfect way to proceed. So maybe I should begin then with a quick, insufficient bio for Dee Dee Jackson himself, and someone I've been privileged to know for most of this century. In fact, all of this century. I think we were brought together in the year 2000. Maybe it was 2001 when we were both commissioned to do an opera together for the great Guelph Jazz Festival. And Dee Dee composed a great opera with my not unfavorable words, if I may say so. So that we've known each other since 2001. Anyway, to get to the point, drum roll, he is Canadian born, from Ottawa, two-time Emmy-winning composer, songwriter, producer, and 5 times nominated for the Emmy Award as well, and a jazz pianist, composer, has recorded 13 CDs of mostly original music as leader or co-leader, including 2 for the major label BMG, ranging from his Juno Award-winning solo piano CD so far to his larger scale meditation on the events of 9/11, known as Suite for New York. He has an extremely extensive bio that he's presented us with, and I'm not going to be able to go through all of it right now. But I do want to emphasize the fact that we have with us this evening, as the maestro, as the composer, as the master musician that he is, someone who's on network television all the time in the United States, where it matters. Broadcast media matters in the US, far more maybe than it does here. And yet, here's Dee Dee Jackson from Ottawa, beaming all around the world from New York City, from the Big Apple, and so on. And I just want to emphasize the fact that he's an internationally renowned, award-winning jazz composer and producer and band leader, and is playing everywhere and with everybody, for crying out loud. And I'm sure that there will be moments later in the program where we can add in a few more details about the CD, or sorry, not just about the CD, but about Dee Dee himself, Dee Dee and CD. I think there's a deliberate rhyme there, at least for me. But I'll just sum up by saying that he is a most extraordinary musician. We are very privileged and lucky to have him apply his talents, all of them, to bringing these poems not so much to life. They already are very much alive, as Dee Dee was saying a few moments ago, but giving them a whole new dimension, a whole new oral dimension. And again, we'll have a bit more to say about Dee Dee, and he may say a bit more about himself as well. I will say very quickly that he's not only a gifted jazz composer, but he's also schooled in classical music. So you've got the European and the African and Asian influences. Dee Dee's mom is from China originally. and his dad is African American. I'll give that little bio out there for you as well. And he was raised in Ottawa in a bilingual and trilingual setting, given the fact that his mom is also and his father are also teachers of Spanish, and his dad was a professor of Black Spanish literature, Black Hispanic literature at Carleton University. So let me then pass the baton or the microphone, so to speak, back to Jovial to introduce our. Well, actually, before I do that, I will very quickly mention again the names of the poets, and then we'll introduce each one as they come up with their poems. But we are going to be hearing tonight in this order. We're going to start with the poet Shukri Paul Zemokhol, and Mr. Zemokhol will not mind my mentioning that we have known each other for 40 years. That's 40 years, and we've been young the entire time. We're still young. Even though we've known each other for 40 years, we are still resolutely young. I just wanted to make that point in case Paul wants to contradict me. But anyway, followed by the phenomenal poet Luciano Iacobelli, who's just had a documentary film made about him. So, you know, that's the kind of company we are keeping this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Followed by the terrific, absolutely gifted poet Giovanna Riccio, also my companion, I'll say very quickly, and who has been nominated for the Bersani Prize, and who has won the Venera Fazio Prize for her poetry. Again, wonderful poet that we'll be hearing from at the middle of the program. And then she's going to be followed by Ayesha Chatterjee, whose poetry is absolutely wondrous and magical, enchanting, surreal at times, symbolic. And we're going to have Dee Dee presenting her poem as song, which is called On Silence. So this is really cool. It's metaphysical. You're going to hear a song about silence. You think about that for a moment. Then we're going to have the terrific, internationally renowned star poet, Yin Xiaoyuan, who is from Beijing. Unfortunately, has been going through a lot of lockdown. She has been going through a lot of lockdowns right now because of COVID-19, 2021, 22, which is what we're on right now. So she will not be able to actually join us live, but has sent a tape of herself reciting her poetry, and I'll also recite some of her poetry. And then we'll also hear from yours truly at the very end with a poem that I asked Dee Dee to compose music for so I could give it to my daughter as a birthday present last year. So that's the quick rundown. We'll have more to say about each poet individually as we get to each poet. So now I will pass the baton and the evening and the microphone over to Jovial.
Thank you, George. But can I make a protest? Because George is so eloquent that although, for instance, I have a paper of the introductions, actually, George only gave me 2 lines to introduce Paul Zemokhol. So I hope, Paul, you wouldn't mind because I'm not that eloquent and I'm not as able as George to improvise. Let me just introduce Paul very briefly. Paul Zemokhol has unpardonably forged 2 chapbooks and 1 full-length book. In this fabrication, he has been aided by Luciano Iacobelli and abetted by George Elliott Clarke. But I think actually for a poet, maybe the best introduction is through his or her verses. So Paul, now take it away.
Thank you, Jovial. I think that's quite a good introduction. Thank you. I'm going to be reading a couple of poems and then the poem that Dee Dee Jackson turned into a song. So we'll hear both versions. The first poem I want to read is a response I wrote to a poet friend in Toronto, Domenico Capilongo, who's a very good poet. And he wrote me an email, and it was the fall. And, you know, it was getting cold, rainy, smoke in the air, and I wrote him a poem in response. So here goes. Letter to Domenico. Domenico, it's my own fault. The sky, the rain, my hands that curl into crochet hooks. The fall nears, and my eyes are as sharp as needles. The treetops, the wind, the muzzles of dogs. Fires are burning, and pines lean this way and that. Everything disappears into the earth. Lakes, seeds, bone. Even tattoos lose their power. If you walk early, take a dog with you. It is a fearful time, the time of sticks, sleep, and lanterns. If you have a good woman, hold to her. If you don't ask me. I'm laying out a bed of leaves and covering it with wild grasses, hoping a spark will take hold. Here's the first one. Second one I want to read is a poem about insomnia. And I was reading Russian poets, specifically two that I love, Marina Tsvetaeva and Osip Mandelstam. And it seems to be a tradition of having insomnia and writing about it. And inspired by Osip Mandelstam, I wrote a poem about my own insomnia. And thinking also about, Russian poets spending their times in seaside resorts. Here goes. It's called I'm Still Here. Let the boats come upon the shore, the gravel shaking, the difference between the waves and the land reconciled in sand, frozen testaments. I'm still here. Silent as the columns of sunken Alexandria that guard the ocean from the harbor. I'm still here. Gray stains into gray, and night shadows glide like stingrays along the coast. I'm still here. Though I count out the names of entire fleets, and the beach's edge froths like the lace fringe of an apron, I'm still here, racking my conscience for my possible crimes, marooned on the rocks while all the rest sail. I'm still here. Though every instrument whirls and tracks the motion of the stars, a somnambulist tale of pouncing lions, bucking rams, and chimera with bows in their hands, I'm still here. Denied the flapping and thrashing of the sails, the groaning of the planks in the embrace of the waves, and the lowering lushness of the anchor of sleep. So those are the two poems, one older, one newer, and now I'm going to get to a poem from my book. It was one of the poems that Dee Dee Jackson chose. And, when we get to Dee Dee, maybe Dee Dee, you can tell me why you chose that one out of the selections offered to you, kind of curious. This was part of my book, and half of the book was about really retelling stories that I got from my mother about Egypt, where I was born, but I came here as a 6-year-old. And she had a very good memory and was kind of the story keeper and told me lots of stories. And this is a poem about trying to rediscover that when I went back, trying to find that Egypt of my mom, my dad, and my ancestors. And it's called, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it, because anytime you leave a place, it's not the same place. I mean, Toronto's not the same place it was 30 years ago. And certainly not the same place it was 60 years ago. And that's when my parents left. Okay, I call. I come from a place that doesn't exist. I stand there and it doesn't exist. I call out to it and it doesn't exist. Passers-by who pity me say, move on. And there are the brave who say, forget it. The practical who say, what can you do? And the factual who say, you are here today. Still, I call. I call because someone must carry their colors. Someone has to hold their hat and gloves. I call because it is a crime to see the world as it is. I call because I failed to call when feet wore the carpet to its yellow bones. I call a place that doesn't exist. I stand there and it doesn't exist. I call a place that doesn't exist, and I answer. That's it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Should I proceed? What happens next?
Uh,
Tell me. I'm in suspense. Yeah.
Well, of course, we shall proceed, and I have a funny feeling that Jovial may want to say something, but maybe after the song is heard. But I'll just comment very quickly that I love the atmosphere, Shukri, Paul, that you bring to bear. It's so meditative. It's so entrancing. And beautiful and delicate and emotive. And I think it's just a wonderful palette that you create with your words. You always have, and I think we've heard some great examples this evening. So I guess now we can hear "I Call" as the song. Introducing once again the maestro, D Jackson.
Wow. Thank you, George. Wow. I have to bring you on the road with me and introduce me for the rest of my career, basically. But I'm sure you're too busy to do that. But yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, well, let me just play the song because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, you know, basically along the lines of what George just expressed, those sort of qualities, the yearning quality, the reflective quality, the meditative quality, sort of a darker vibe, you know, that whole kind of sentiment appealed to me. The simplicity in a certain way of the lyrics, which lent itself very well to be treated as a song. But having said that, it was a pleasure to hear you read your own words for the first time. So that, you know, gives me even more of an insight into what you did. So I'm going to go rewrite it and I'll be right back now. Just kidding. All right, so let me go ahead and play this song so we can keep things moving. And here we go. Hopefully no technical difficulties. I'm going to mute myself.
I come from a place that doesn't exist. I stand there and it doesn't exist. I call out to it and it doesn't exist. I call out to it and it doesn't exist. Passerbys who pity me say move on, and there are the brave who say forget it. The practical who say what can you do, and the factual who say you are here today. Still I call. I come from a place that doesn't exist. I stand there and it doesn't exist. I call out to it and it doesn't exist. I call out to it and it doesn't exist. Because someone must carry their colors, someone has to hold their hat and gloves. I call because it is a crime to see the world as it is, as it is. I call because I failed to call when feet wore the carpet to its yellow bones. I call a place that doesn't exist. I stand there and it doesn't exist. I call a place that doesn't exist. I call a place that doesn't exist. And I answer.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I'm still playing
Yeah,
music in
so
the background.
touching.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
There we go. I'm back.
Okay. Dee Dee. Wow.
Yay!
That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Beautiful poem.
And the video was very well done as well, along with the music. I just loved all the close-ups of the hands and the keys.
Yes.
In a sense, your hands were calling to the keys as much as Shukri Paul's words were calling to our imaginations. Just so sweet. So
Well, I have to credit my daughter Aria for filming the side angle that I edited in with the other two cameras. So we've had a lot of practice during COVID to do virtual ensemble videos. So I even had a little company that did that for a while out of desperation for creative outlets. So it's always fun to do that as well. But thank you very much.
just it's Broadway, for crying out loud. You brought us Broadway. Is it the aesthetics of the presentation? I mean, just wonderful, absolutely. And now I'm going to ask Jovial to say a few words, please.
Yes, yeah, this is a very touching poem and also a touching song. I am aware that actually for Paul, this is a poem to talk about the maybe inner dilemma of an immigrant, right? So it really strikes a chord in me. But I think my feeling is the other way around because I actually immigrated to Canada in my middle age, when I was already at my middle age. So I spent still actually the most part of my life in my home country, which is Shanghai. When I'm in Canada, when sometimes on Toronto streets, I feel that, well, I come from a place that doesn't exist in the sense that not many people are aware of my heritage, my roots. For instance, I meet friendly Torontonians, but it seems that very often I will be asked questions like, oh, you're from China. Uh, then they start to want to know more from me about feng shui, about kung fu, about Jackie Lee. Sometimes I feel a little bit disappointed. When I was not in a very good mood, I feel a little bit annoyed or frustrated because China, be it in the good sense or in the bad sense of the word, in the Westerners' eyes, is far more than that. And these days, it seems that more people begin to be aware of my hometown, Shanghai. But unfortunately, it's not in a very positive image because maybe you know what is going on in Shanghai these days. Very strict lockdown of the people there. Today. I actually really hope that these days I cannot help but think about my parents who are already in their 80s, approaching in their 70s, approaching 80. I really hope they can someday go out to be able to move about, to have 1 hour in the sunshine because they have been locked at home. Literally, they are not be able to step out of their houses for the past 2 months. So yeah, I just think as the first generation immigrant, some of the verses in Paul's poem, yeah, it really touches me. Um, just the other way, like I mentioned. So thank you for um, revealing the inner world of immigrants to others. Yeah, I'm very moved, and I feel happy that uh, a person poetic like me, oh, sorry, like you, uh, depicts the feelings or the emotions of immigrants. Thank you.
Yes, that is so well put. And I know all of us wish everyone in Shanghai the ability to recover from the lockdowns as soon as possible. I'll just mention quickly that the woman who designed our poster, Shirley Chen, is also in Shanghai and also going through the lockdown. So people in Shanghai, people in Beijing, people in China are very much on all of our minds right now, as we wish for all of us to emerge from this pandemic as soon as possible. But I also want to underline what you just said, Jovial, that Paul's words, Dee Dee's music really encapsulate that feeling of alienation that many of us can feel. Alienation mixed with the kind of nostalgia as well that a lot of us can feel who find ourselves as minority people in contexts that where we are not really understood very well. So salutations, Monsieur Zemokhol, once again for that wonderful poem, and to Dee Dee for the music. I think that now we'll move on to our second poet, who is, of course, Luciano Iacobelli. And Jovial, should I start or should you start with the introduction?
Oh, you please, George.
Okay, thanks very
And
much.
please make it as lively as you can, because I have already a sneak peek or sneak here of Dee Dee Jackson's song. I think is very energetic. So your introduction of Luciano Iacobelli should echo that.
Well, you've given me a tall order to try to fulfill, Jovial, and I thank you very much for that. So I'll first give us Luciano Iacobelli's own bio. He is a Torontonian visual artist and a publisher. He is the author of 8 books of poetry. Noctograms, his most recent poetry book, has just appeared. A launch is scheduled at some point during late spring or summer. He spends his days making sculptures and gambling on sports. And as I mentioned a moment ago, he is also the subject of a brand new half-hour, 36-minute documentary by the great Italian-Canadian critic Antonio D'Alfonso, who has to be read if you haven't read it. But you got to read Luciano Iacobelli first. The poem that Dee Dee Jackson has made into a song for us is based on a true event that happened in Little Italy in Toronto, which is essentially a daylight shooting in Little Italy, which is the title of the poem, which is in the collection Dollar Midnight by Mr. Iacobelli, which talks about the ins and outs of gambling and addiction, and gambling as metaphor, and how it impacts, how addiction especially can impact daily life and family life and so on. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we have Luciano Iacobelli.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
You guys could hear me, okay. George, I want to thank you. It's such an honor to be included in events like this, and it's so wonderful to have one's words set to music. In fact, I think words want to be music, and for the words and the music to be in such close proximity really thrills the words. And also, I want to thank Dee Dee. Man, what you came up with, I had no clue that you could do that with this particular kind of poem. It went beyond my expectation. What you produced is dynamic and it's blowing my mind. It's still blowing my mind. So the poem is from this book, Dollar Midnight, which deals with the subject of gambling. And as George said, it deals with an event that me and my family witnessed. We were there while the guy got shot, and we're like 5 feet away. Now, I'm going to read the poem that's in the book, and it's a 3-pager. So because we're not writing operas, but songs, Dee Dee had to do some wonderful editing, and boy, did he distill it down to its essence. And I'm as pleased as you could possibly imagine. Thank you very much. So let me start. The poem begins with a journalistic description of what took place that day. A brazen, broad daylight shooting in Little Italy on the crowded patio of the Sicilian Sidewalk Cafe during a Euro soccer match. The gunman looked clownish, a witness said. He wore a hot hat on top of a blonde wig, a safety vest, and a white filter mask. Targeted and killed was a former member of a motorcycle gang linked to gambling. Some do not fear water. Some go under the waves and swim straight into the hitman's eyes. Intense living dying. To bet on the oblivious, not the obvious, to merge with the game, be one of the verbs, a wheel's turn, a card's flip, a die's tumble. A gambler's death is debt collection, a style of payment. Bright, beautiful sun and the families enjoying their meals can't ward off the sinkhole, how the earth opens up unannounced. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate a day crayoned in a kindergarten class. Yellow sun and too blue sky. 3 holes in the gambler's head, a shrieking widow, a friend or brother crying, John, John, oh, John. The killer jumps over the metal railing, runs north on Montrose Avenue, dust mask, helmet, goofy blonde wig, disappears up the street and into the alley. The corpse slumped against the brick wall, beyond luck and fortune now. Still point and nucleus of all this panic and grief. Bang, bang, bang. The shots play back in my head. Brain bits hit the ground, gushing blood. The open and fluid skull, the dead man's thoughts pour into the street, stain, red octopus, disentangling from its own tentacles. But the blood spreads and the picture is unstable. The tragedy reshuffled, new shapes dealt, strange suits, face cards from an unfamiliar deck. Johnny Maserati, high roller, his wins, losses, ups and downs, kindnesses and cruelties lie spectacular on the ground. The very red of dangerous living, blood mixed with strawberry syrup, my eyes licking the sweetness of a life extremely lived. His existence in contrast to my own, for I gamble without risk of flesh or blood. My forfeiture barely visible. I risk only small amounts of vitality. Surrender the will incrementally. I extinguish discreetly. Thank you. Now, I'm going to spare you guys a second poem because I think that took up enough time, but I do want to plug my book, Noctograms, which is actually going to be launched in 2.5 weeks, June the 14th. I'm sending out information about it. It should be on Facebook, and it's at a place called Houndstooth. It's near College in Ossington, but I'll give more details. It's a 300-page book, so it comes to 7 cents a page for $20. And that's, pretty good. Mostly it's 20 cents a page, but I'm offering it 7 cents a page.
That's Canadian too. So
a socialist.
Well put, Dee. Yes, it is, and Canadian. So it's really inexpensive, everyone. Really inexpensive in this age of incredible inflation. And we won't bring in the Bank of Canada here, but anyway, never mind. That was a wonderful reading, and I think that you did a great job in encapsulating the horror of that violence on that moment. The shock of it all, and also bringing to the fore the humanity of the victim. So very, very well done. And I think now we should hear from Mr. Jackson once again with the song version,
Yes.
and then we'll talk a little bit more about it after.
Okay, but yes, what a pleasure to hear. I'd never heard you recite that poem before, of course. This is all new for me, so that was really quite thrilling because I've gotten so inside these songs from a completely different angle, and that really, brings it to life in a whole different way. So that was fantastic. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, I'm just going to play the song though. Here we go. Barring technical difficulties again, here we go.
A gambler's death is debt collection, style of payment, bright, beautiful sun, and the families enjoying their meals. Cat ward off the sinkhole, how the earth opened up unannounced. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate. A day crayoned in a kindergarten class. Yellow sun and two blue sky. 3 holes in the gambler's head. A shrieking widow, a friend or brother crying, John, John, oh John. The killer jumps over the railing, runs north on Montrose. Dust mask helmet, goofy blonde wig, disappears up the street to an alley. The corpse slumped against the brick wall. Still point and nucleus of all. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate. A day crayoned in a kindergarten class. Yellow sun and two blue sky. 3 holes in the gambler's head. A shrieking widow, a friend or brother crying, John, John, oh John. Shots play back in my head. Bang, bang, bang. Brain bits hit the ground. Gushing blood. The open fluid skull. The dead man's thoughts pour into street stain. Red octopus disentangling from its own tentacles. But the blood spreads and the picture is unstable. The tragedy reshuffled, new shapes dealt. Strange suits face cards from an unfamiliar deck. Johnny Maserati high roller, his wins, losses, up and downs. Kindness and cruelties lie spectacular on the ground. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate. Bang, 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 and bullets penetrate. A day crayoned in a kindergarten class. Yellow sun and two blue sky. 3 holes in the gambler's head. A shrieking widow, a friend or brother crying, John, John, oh John. Bang, bang, bang.
Wow! Once again, wow! Yeah, I'm gonna let Jovial say a few words, but I just want to say very quickly, and Luch, if you want to comment as well, and Didi, if you want to say anything, feel free. But I'm gonna say something real fast, which is that I hear, and this is like incredible. I mean, I love the idea of poetry as art, song, and this is also art song, but it's also pop. You know, P.O.P. This is kind of like Andy Warhol coming in with jazz or crying out, thanks to Luc's words, right? So I just and so I'm hearing Beatles there, you know, and for me, like, that's like really high praise and so on, and something that could be on Broadway, right? So Aditi, marvelous, and again the video was brilliant. Yeah, maybe you, Didi, and Luch want to say, Jovial, please. You know, feel free
Yeah,
to.
I mean, I have nothing to add. It was just such a pleasure to work on that song. I had no idea that you were actually there at the incident. Maybe I should have done more research because I should have been aware of that, I suppose. But that was a fascinating insight, just finding that out right now. So yeah, it was a very, very enjoyable song to set, and it was interesting too that I don't know how it worked out, but there were two like new like internal rhymes from what you actually had written without me changing anything, by just emphasizing the words in a different way. That I was listening back just now, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, that we're in there. So that was also kind of a fun surprise that worked out. Because you're always trying to find like structural anchors, and this was very much a song, like with a recurring chorus and everything. When you wrote bang, 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 that just felt like something that had to come back. So all of that was really a pleasure to write to. So thank you.
All I could say is I'm stunned. I was overly pleased with it, and you took exactly the right approach. I can't see that have been that piece being any different. After I heard it, I'm thinking this is it. Can't be anything else but this. So that's a sign of you know, you finding the right expression and doing justice to what I did, and you know, it's great. I just I'm overwhelmed. That's all I can say.
Well, that's very kind of you, but thank you again for your words. So.
Just a quick question for Luch. I love that simple phrase, "rid octopus." But as a child of the 1970s, you know, I don't mind saying my age and so on. But as a child of the 1970s, I couldn't help but think of that great album, and Dee might know it as well, Jefferson Starship, "Rid Octopus."
Oh,
Believe
interesting.
in miracles, right? I don't know if that was there in the back of your mind. I'm not going to sing.
I'm a Starship fan.
Well, there
Better when they were Jefferson Airplane, but
White Rabbit and whatnot. But
yes.
Miracles was on that album.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only you believed in miracles, so would I. But anyway, that was it, Red Octopus. So I suddenly saw that conjunction there. Anyway.
Great.
Jovial.
Yes, yeah, I should say I'm overwhelmed both by the poem and by the song. And I think the charm of poetry is that it can be a very high concentration of emotion through very just through very simple combination of words. I mean, compared with essays or novels. So I feel amazed that Luciano is able to depict such a story through a rich array of images, and also through you are really a master of words, I should say. This is a poem, not many words, but when I was listening to you read the poem, in my mind, it's almost like I was right on the scene. I can see what has happened. It's really amazing. And also, I love the song. I think the poem actually is very thought-provoking and maybe a little bit heavy, but the music, I like the melody, I like the rhythm, and it seems to soften the tone or soften the emotion a little bit. So I enjoy the song a lot.
Wow. This is our second wonderful, I mean, incredible. I just got to say it, incredible, masterful presentation this evening. And we are all so blessed to have these talents represented. Woo! I'll also say very quickly, congratulations, Luch, on the fact that you have Noctograms coming out, your own epic, for crying out loud. Only 7 cents a page. Yeah, that's nice. So I think now we will move on to our next poet, and I will allow, I shouldn't say allow, I'm going to ask Jovial to do the introduction of Giovanna Riccio.
Yes, that will be my great pleasure. Giovanna Riccio is a poet, a teacher, and an independent scholar. She is the author of Vittorio Stromberg and the Plastics Republic, which is shortlisted for the 2022 Bersani Prize. Her poems have been translated into 6 languages, and her writing has appeared in national and international publications and in numerous anthologies. Giovanna is also the 2021 winner of the Venera Razio Poetry Prize. I would also like to use my right as the co-host to add one more line of introduction that is coined by me myself. Giovanna Riccio, in my opinion, is also a very charming lady. So yeah, I can't wait to hear her again to read her poem.
Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here again for the 5 poets breaking into song. And thank you to East-West Learning Connections for hosting us, and to George for his visionary idea of this combination and bringing it to fruition and continuing it. And Dee Dee, I want to thank you. Dee Dee chose a poem of mine that is very short, and a poem I had forgotten about, but his rendition of it was so evocative, and it is a poem I really like that I wrote. So it brought it back home to me, and I hope that you'll enjoy it and be as impressed with Dee Dee's formidable talent as I was. So I'll begin my reading tonight. Since everyone was reading weighty stuff, I'm going to start with something lighter. And I want to say that this is called Between the Covers. And Robert, I noticed that Robert Paquin is here, and he translated this poem into French for the Parliamentary Poets website in Ottawa there. So this is Between the Covers. It's a playful little poem about poetic forms and relationships. I'm not sure I should be writing this. Maybe I should have called instead. Poetry is an oral art after all. What I want to say is I've been obsessing, wondering if you really care about us. My poetics have been looking for a meaningful relationship for years, and I'm still not certain about your level of interest. Sure, you sometimes gaze deeply into those inspired opening phrases that I anguish over. And from time to time, you hang on my every word because I wowed you with a long, leggy line, or a low-cut stanza revealed my caesura. Sometimes my voice feels too one-sided, like I'm a dramatic monologue without much feedback. Despite adjusting my verse, taking it up to haiku, letting it down to epic style, and asking myself, should my theme be blunt or layered, is always the quick read with you. Do I spend too much time setting the mood or creating suggestive allusions? Because I've been careful not to overdo it. There's nothing worse than becoming a pathetic fallacy. Not to beat a dead horse, but there's also the matter of attention to basics, lacy cuts that make for transparent meaning, internal rise so subtle they need a slow read to peak. Finally, there's that fit form I keep inside all that free verse. How about staying between the covers a little longer? And the next poem I'd like to read is a poem I wrote for my older sister. It's called The Pull of the Tide. Antique satin drapes pick roses from Persian gardens below. A polished constellation lights the dining room night. Silver wrapped in crimson velvet waits for a party. At her 50th birthday, she cannot acknowledge her husband's gift, forgets to thank him. We raise a crystal spire toast her another 50 years. She eats her cake with a mouth of open doubt, silver tines gliding in like the moon going out. I want to go away, she says, maybe a Mediterranean cruise, but how can I leave this house grown so heavy upon my back? Can I find the old sea that I miss? Suddenly her voice falls silent. She orders thermal windows, begins to decorate the family room in sea green and blue, adds an armchair for him, custom made, a seashell molded to his body. Dressed in coral and oyster white, she restrings the pearls around her neck tighter, stands back to view the whole effect. The house embraces her in its magnetic laws. How can she leave so many Persian carpets to cross? Maybe it is the pull of the tide. Inside the night she gathers herself, finds her road to the sea. Standing in her own gravity, she unfurls the carpets, watches colors bleed and run free. She volleys glasses, tosses silver spoons to the waves, sees them become shimmering fish. Her hands unclasp the pearls, and she lightly turns toward her wish. And I will end with the poem that Dee has composed music for. This is called Daedalus Lament, and it was inspired, of course, by the Daedalus myth and Icarus flying too close to the sun. But it was really inspired by a trip to Greece, and my boat, the boat I was on, came into the island of Icaria, where supposedly Icarus fell to his death. And as you come into the harbor, there's a magnificent sculpture of two looming, shooting wings, and Icarus fallen between them. And it inspired me, this little poem. And I will say that when I refer to the island in this, I'm referring to Daedalus, who, according to the myth, retired to the island of Sicily in his grief. Daedalus's Lament. A murmur in the sky, and you're gone. My architect's wings insufficient to hold you. Now if I trip on the wind, melt down this calculated freedom. Teach me simple arithmetic. Take me beyond the island I have become. Remember me to the mainland. Carry the feathers I lost to you back to a time before the sun. Show me again how to love the air. Thank you very much.
Bravo. Again, what a thrill to hear you say those words for the first time, to recite them. I think that the poem, the song version speaks for itself, so I want to allow others to say whatever they wish to say, but as far as the song at least, I just want to say, I think I can go ahead and just play it. But just let me know, George, if you would like to say something.
Well, I'll just say very quickly, very quickly, how wonderful it is, of course, to hear words that have been so carefully, poignantly chosen and poised. And I'm thinking of all three poems we've just heard when I say that. I've often described Giovanna's work as being based on the notion of le mot juste, always the right word at the right time. And also, of course, she has a strong philosophical orientation, which also comes across, but also a very playful side, as we heard in Between the Covers. So I know we're going to say more in a few minutes, but let's hear Daedalus's Lament by Dee Jackson.
And Giovanna.
And Giovanna!
Giovanna, I meant, yes.
Yeah.
A murmur in the sky, and you're gone. My architect's wings insufficient to hold you. If I trip on the wind, melt down this calculated freedom, teach me simple arithmetic, a murmur in the sky, and you're gone. My architect's wings insufficient to hold you. If I trip on the wind, melt down this calculated freedom, teach me simple arithmetic, take me beyond the island I have become. Remember me to the mainland. Carry the feathers I lost to you back to a time before the sun. Show me again how to love the air, a murmur in the sky, and you're gone. My architect's wings insufficient to hold you. If I trip on the wind, melt down this calculated freedom, teach me simple arithmetic. If I trip on the wind, melt down this calculated freedom, teach me simple arithmetic.
Amen. That is so gorgeous.
Can I just say something? Yeah.
Of course.
I saw some of the comments and somebody said that such longing was one, and it's bringing tears to my eyes. And I have to say it did that to me too. When I first heard that, the lament was so palpable. he just captured the feeling I was experiencing as I was writing that poem. And it was just so evocative that I felt like crying right there and then. What a success, Dee Dee. What a success.
Oh, thank you so much.
So much.
Well, just beautiful lyrics, very evocative and emotional for me. It was funny because there was a piece by Henry Purcell, like an English Baroque composer that I used to study in college called Daedalus Lament. So when I heard the title of the song, I looked that song up, and because I remember the mood of that song. And if anyone listens to that song, it doesn't sound in any way directly like it or anything, but just it had a very similar sensibility. So it allowed me the opportunity to capture a mood from a song that I loved, back in college, that I don't think I've ever really quite expressed in that way before. So it was really because of the power of those words. So thank you very much.
Utterly perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm always finding these pop cultural references to throw out because I think that they're also important, and so listening to that very poignant, very plangent melody, the treatment of the poem, I thought of some of the ballads of Elton John, Bernie Taupin. I thought of Paul Simon. I thought of Billy Joel, and of course, all of these references are meant very high praise because I think it is really really moving and important to be able to take profound thought and gift that thought in that commentary with such profound melody as well. So yeah, great job for that.
Well, those are all definitely influences as well. The people that you mentioned, yeah.
Thank you, Dee.
Influences, yeah.
Yeah. Well processed, let me put it that way, and made original by you. Let me ask Jovial to comment.
Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. I mean, both the poem and the song. Talking about Giovanna, just now, George, you mentioned, for instance, Giovanna's poems are always very philosophical, and she never fails to use the right words, and even sometimes it's playful. I want to add that I also find a lot of empathy in Giovanna's poems. I believe that she is a person who yeah, I just believe she has the heart to always empathize with others' feelings. I can feel that through her verses. And as for Dee Dee's song, yeah, this one is really beautiful, so touching. And I feel amazed that so far we have listened to 3 songs. These based on 3 poems. These poems are very different in terms of emotion style, but it seems that Dee Dee never fails to catch the right emotion and reflect that in his songs. This is really amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and again, everyone has just been so elevating in terms of the quality of the work, the music, the voicings, the playing, the video, the recitations of the poetry, and we are still only halfway through. So there is more to come, and we're going to move along to our next poet, who is Ayesha Chatterjee, and I will begin the introduction. I suppose I may be able to do that. So yes, here we are. Thrilled to be able to invite Ayesha Chatterjee to our program. Born and raised in Kolkata, India, she has lived in England, the USA, and Germany, and is now based in Toronto. She earned a BA from Smith College in Massachusetts, graduating cum laude in English and German. She is the author of 2 poetry collections, The Clarity of Distance and Bottles and Bones. Her poems have appeared in journals across the globe and have been translated into 3 languages. Ms. Chatterjee, Ayesha, is past president of the League of Canadian Poets and chair of the League's Feminist Caucus. So I would like to ask Ayesha to unmute and please commence your reading.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I never quite know how to follow up with after that, but huge big thank you for including me in this lineup. It's just so exciting. It's also my first reading of 2022, virtual or otherwise, so I'm particularly excited and nervous about it. I just wanted to say thank you also to everyone at East West Learning, especially Yang, and big shout out to everybody who's here watching, because it's lovely. I recognize a lot of faces, and even the faces I don't recognize. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to be reading to all of you. Okay, I know I only have a finite amount of time, so I'm just going to go straight into it. I thought I would start, because it's a musical poetic evening, I figured I should start with something from my collection, Bottles and Bones, because many of the poems in this collection are about fragrance and the world of perfumery. And one of the things about perfumery is that a lot of the terms that are used in it are the same as those used in music, which I found fascinating. So for example, the phases that a perfume goes through are known as its notes. You got the top note, the middle or the heart note, and the base note. And so just this whole idea of, two senses, the sense of smell and the sense of hearing, kind of fusing has been sort of really interesting to me. So I'm going to start with the first poem, the top note, if you will, in Bottles and Bones. It's called I Forget Like a Goldfish. I forget like a goldfish that the time is 12:35, just past noon or after midnight. In the mirror, a girl who is not me wears a peach swimsuit and stares through a circled sun at a point above her head. I opt for chandeliers of upturned bottles fighting light with rust, and the time is still 12:35. Now I know spring can be condensed into something amber like a letter. My dear sir, I am writing to remind you, I am so sorry, that even screen figures are real when you add a third dimension. Concentrate on the act of elimination to arrive at your answer. Cross out the stars. 12:35. Politely, a gull in a grey suit waits for the light to change before she struts across to the other side, and tourists stop to watch. The only sun is in the mirror, captured in metal. A blue rabbit crouches in a square. There is cake and rain, and he will build an house, and it will be forever. Again, I forget not to look at the time. So the next poem was written in the first year that the world shut down, October 2020, and it's called Shaftesbury. This city eludes me. It slides like a yo-yo all the way up Young to Richmond Hill and back into my hand. Mostly now, it's a bit of sky, some shops, children's voices, the shudder of a freight train. Evenings, a helicopter offends the startling October air. The CN Tower is still not mine. The lake too. I don't understand them. Instead, on Shaftesbury, a redbud guards the pretty gleaming bones of 4 white chairs. Whiplash. So I'm writing a series of poems inspired by the Hindu warrior goddess Durga, who's worshipped in many parts of India, mostly the north, and very much in Bengal, which is where I'm from. And she has her own 10-day festival in her honor in Bengal, usually around September, October, which is also one of the harvest seasons. She is known and is celebrated because she defeated the buffalo demon Mohishashur, who was terrorizing the world. And she was actually created by the gods because Mohishashur was granted a boon, a wish by the Lord Brahma that no man would be able to kill her. So the gods created a warrior woman. So this is stories of Durga, reign. I didn't count her weapons, but I remember clearly the sharp nocturnal smell of gifted clothes, the silent loudspeakers. There were crowds of people. There were none. Memory, like poetry, can't be trusted. No one spoke. It was as if there were no one there but me, standing in the mud, dripping like a woman stalking, fresh as God. So, and okay, here we come to the poem that Didi has so magnificently set to music. It's just, I'm so excited to be able to share it because it's just brilliant. When I was practicing reading, I had to consciously block out the song from my mind because I found myself reading it the way he sings it, and that's not quite what I was meaning to do. So anyway, this is it, On Silence. Imagine the night singing outside your window, like your blood amplified into an orchestra. Every leaf on every tree, each insect, even the ground, a harmony of timbers. The moon, the lightest of them. Your thoughts made manifest. They don't need you. When you are gone, somewhere in a jungle you once passed through, this blood rush will still be humming, many-legged. Thank you.
Wow. So great to hear you recite that. Interesting that the rhythmical pacing was similar to that of the song. It's interesting because I hadn't heard that before, so it would have informed me similarly in reverse if I'd heard it before. But lovely. But
at that point, it was such a, it was so tempting to actually say it the way you say it. No, I can't do that.
But yeah, so I interceded, George. Surely you are going to say something right now. Please, please say something.
Wow. What I have to say is what I think that, and I think the song will show it. Ayesha is a poet who I place as a kind of like late symbolist, in that all the images are layered and point to very deep and unsuperficial, because they're very deep things. And I think that the interpretation has to go beyond what the words appear to say, which is, of course, the symbolist method. And also, I throw out a little bit of surrealism seems to come in there as well. But yeah, I think that it's beautiful to have your approach, Didi, to these words. And I want to thank Ayesha for all of the poems tonight and all of those brilliant images. I like the being in the mud, and it's like a lady's stocking dripping. Wow, that's exactly what it's like to be stuck in the mud. In my experience, I'm just kidding about that part, but that's a beautiful image. It is great. So let's hear the song, and then we'll come back and have a little bit more discussion.
Imagine the night singing outside your window, like your blood amplified into an orchestra. Every leaf on every tree, each insect, even the ground a harmony of timbers. The moon, the lightest of them. Imagine the night singing outside your window, like your blood amplified into an orchestra. Every leaf on every tree, each insect, even the ground, a harmony of timbers. The moon, the lightest of them. Your thoughts made manifest. Your thoughts made manifest. Oh, they don't need you. When you are gone, somewhere in a jungle you once passed through, this blood rush will still be humming, many-legged. They were your thoughts made manifest. Your thoughts made manifest. Oh, they don't need you. They don't need you. They don't need you when you are gone.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Didi. Really, you've taken this poem and and I think that was what was so exciting for me is you've repeated lines and you've sort of delicately teased out certain phrases and you've made it into something completely its own. And it's just, I'm so gobsmacked.
Wow. Well, it was such a evocative and haunting poem. And for me, the challenge was, since it's on silence and it has such a stillness inherent in the reflective quality of it, the meditative quality of the lyrics, to kind of try to capture, you still have to do something that fills the silence on a musical level to embody that. So it's funny that George was mentioning, pop references. This actually was, in a certain way, I was inspired by actually the music of Sting. So this was actually more of a deliberate reference. Not his stuff with the Police, but he did this whole phase where he did a lot of very kind of jazz. He even had very much a jazz band, as his main band, and he did a number of pieces that had this sort of jazzy quality with Branford Marsalis on soprano sax and so. So I really wanted to try to do something that, I kind of listened to some of that to get that into my head, and that was sort of a source of inspiration, just to share that as well. But lovely poem, and very deep poem for me as a lowly composer, non-poet. Some big ideas, so it was very fascinating. So thank you.
An Englishman in New York it comes to mind in terms of the Sting reference. But you know what? The strange thing I was thinking about in terms of the song, the first thing that came to my mind, now this is, I admit it's strange and it's incorrect, but I was thinking Barry White, going back to the 70s and some of his very lush orchestrations and these long pieces where basically somebody is moaning about love or groaning about love and so on. What I'm trying to get at here is that there was a kind of like this, the meditative atmosphere, and the plangency that I associate with some of Barry White's anthems, love anthems, basically of the 70s, came through for me. But I just got to stop bringing in the pop references. Although I'm glad that they do kind of fit in some ways. Thank you.
It's all good. I am very non-judgmental about any possible influence.
Well, you're ecumenical. You got it all, and you reflect it all in your music. But I do also think that the melody was very well chosen for this piece, and as you say, it's very deep and meditative, and you pulled it off. The metaphysics of writing a song on silence, very good. I thank Ayesha.
Exactly. Thank you.
Jovial.
Yeah, again, I want to say so beautiful and so absorbing. May I just quote one line from Ayesha's words, say that, wow, blood rush is still humming.
Yeah, thank you. I think I was really thinking about, when you think everything is silent, you can really hear your blood, And it was actually inspired by a trip to Costa Rica where I thought the night would be silent, and it is absolutely not, because of the insects. And it sounded very much like blood, and it just sets off a whole lot of thoughts through your head. But yeah.
You probably all know this, but there's a particular phrase in medicine for the sound of the blood, and it is Venus hum. That's Venice spelled V as in Valentine, E-N as in Nancy, O-U-S. Venice, or maybe it's Venus, but I think it's Venice, and then hum. That's the medical term for the sound that your blood makes moving through your body. So we've got it all happening tonight.
That's fascinating. I had no idea.
Bring in the medical dictionaries as well as everything else. So, and why not? It is a form of discourse. I think this has been just so elegant. The transformations that have been taking place this evening, and funky. And when I say funky, I'm thinking of Luc's piece that we've heard already, brazen daylight shooting or daylight shooting in Little Italy, and then all the sheer elegance of the other pieces that we've heard so far, including Giovanna's and of course yours, Ayesha's, and Paul's as well. But I'd just like to ask Dee Dee if there's anything else you'd like to comment on what we've heard so far as we move into the last part of our evening.
Well, I had said something before we started, and I forget if somebody had asked, why did I choose these poems, and I wanted to make the point that it was an embarrassment of riches. Generally, first of all, thank you, George, for even doing this. Obviously, this is an amazing treat, for me to have, one of my favorite quotes is Duke Ellington: "I don't need time, I need a deadline." Love having this deadline and churn out another song and have this wonderful exposure to all these fantastic poets. But I was going to say it was an embarrassment of riches in terms of being given not just one poem necessarily to only try to write a song based on that specific poem, but just to be being given a cross section of different poems by each person. So it was really quite a luxury to be able to go through and find the one that felt the most suitable or adaptable or whatever as a song, when they were all most of them were just fine by themselves, so that, but it was a wonderful problem or luxury to have to go through and try to figure out the right one. But yeah, it's been quite a pleasure. So thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, I'll just say very quickly that for myself, as someone who started writing poetry, I wanted to be a songwriter. I've always thought that poems are waiting to be songs. They're waiting to be songs. First of all, they got to be read aloud anyway. Even when you don't have the music, it's got to be read aloud. But then if you have the music, it's another dimension, right? So I just find it personally so rewarding to hear everything with a musical cast as well. And I also love the fact that I think I can say later on, I want to invite everybody to comment on this, but the whole idea of, I know for myself, to have a poem suddenly burst into song, woo! It's just another reality. It's so cool. And I'll just mention very quickly as well that I know that you plan God willing, that there will be a CD with these songs as well, and all the poets are aware of that. That we may very well be able to put together a CD in the near future, and that would be a great thing. So I want everybody to think about that. You know, you grab a CD and slide it into the CD player if you still have one of those things, and all of a sudden there's your poem as a song, and even better, a check for the royalties when the CDs get sold and bought. And of course they will be. And what if you have a #1 song? Woo! That's wow, something to look forward to.
Yeah, and bringing in some other vocalists potentially as well. I mean, it's so funny because what I was doing, this is literally my singing debut publicly, because I've never really sung before other than just demos for clients, quote unquote, when I'm writing songs for people and stuff, to give them a good sense of how it goes. But if we do the CD, I may keep a couple of them myself, but I definitely have different people in mind. In fact, I just ran into didn't run into him. I just heard randomly from Dean Bowman, this wonderful singer that worked on the first opera George and I did together, Cavesite. And apparently he's in Romania now, George. So I'm gonna have to work on figuring out how to get him on the CD, because I envision him singing at least one of these songs, not one of the ones from this evening, but another that I didn't present yet. So anyway, but yes, a CD hopefully is in the works. We've applied for a grant, a Canada Council grant, fingers crossed, et cetera, and would love to continue this project.
If they want to sleep quietly forever at night, they will have to do the right thing. Right. granting the funds. I'm sure that I know that something good is going to come out of all this, and it will just be so wonderful that all of the poets will have the experience of hearing your songs coming out of speakers in your car, for crying out loud, in your house, when you're falling asleep, and all of a sudden CBC slips one of your songs on there. Right? I mean, holy smokes, you can't do better than that. I know we have to be conscious of time, so we will move on, but I just want to say how much I'm enjoying everything. And so I'll introduce our fifth poet this evening, who, again, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the night, unfortunately cannot be with us. She has given me an extensive CV and bio, if you like, and it's well deserved. She is Yin Xiaoyuan. She is from Beijing, China, where she is right now under lockdown due to COVID. She describes herself as an avant-garde crossover epic poet, as well as a multi-genre and multilingual writer, founder of the Encyclopedic Poetry School, established in 2007, also the initiator of the Hermaphroditic Writing Movement and chief drafter of the Declaration of Hermaphroditic Writing, editor and visual designer of Encyclopedic Poetry School, AI Papercube, and several other works. She has an online International Poetry Festival CD album. She's the director and visual designer of 12th Anniversary Poetry /T Deluxe Gift Set, 12th Anniversary Commemorative Medallions. And I need to break away from her very extensive CV to say this about her. She is a poet's poet. She does everything. And she puts everything into the poetry, and she's very international. Her works have appeared in Chinese, English, Japanese, German, French, translation, German, Spanish, Italian, Swedish, Portuguese, Arabian, Irish, Galician, Finnish, Romanian, Greek, Estonian, Russian, Bengali, Hebrew, Macedonian, Turkish, Bulgarian, Albanian. The list goes on; it's endless. And I'm so happy that our paths crossed. She's done some translations for me of my work, which are in my Canticles volumes, and she's also arranged for a portrait of yours truly. Thank you so much. I wish she could be with us tonight, but again, she cannot, unfortunately. So she's asked me to read the poems in English that she has selected. And then she has herself presented a video of herself reciting a work in Chinese, which I welcome, most definitely. I'll show you her book in English. It's titled You can just see how beautiful it is. Cloud Seeding Agent. It's published in the US. Collected poems by Yin Xiaoyuan, 2013 to 2019. And the first poem that she's asked me to read is Ode to Prime Numbers. And as I look up this poem, I will just say very quickly that she is very much a surrealist. I would say so. I would classify her as a surrealist poet. And with every poem, there are usually at least one photograph, sometimes two. So this is the photograph that accompanies Ode to Prime Numbers. So here it is. Your name is Le Seul, undeconstructible and enigmatically yielding. As straight as a feather, vividly white as well, is the fragment of bone in the depth of entwined source codes. You never know, since when the lips of the cognoscenti started testing on you, they longed to know how the fluttering sequences of binary numbers smell, which scintillate between positive and negative infinity, ambery, or just intoxicatingly oriental. Their coarseness hampered their forlorn attempt to reach you. Their lust to disassemble left them nothing but despair and dirty, worn gloves. Just as Alphonse de Polignac once said, there is a mirror image of you in the fathomless universe, forever 2 degrees apart from where you are located. You almost felt her sometimes. You have spared no vision or hearing in your exploratory search for her. Yet you sank into an ocean of molecules, banal replicas of one another, and then a more of double helixes blooming and withering ephemerally. All you could see is waving hi-fi, stretching along fissures between clusters of stars, whose glimmers tasted so antiquely astringent. You were chosen out of all the others since you were a ripe embryo. Time roughened hands with sophisticate calmness, combed through and smoothed out kernels of corn, like what fate did to centillion bytes of data. The blazing ibis from the east condescended to them, like a flash of wisdom. Devoutly before her they winnowed away chaff and dust, while you clung to the center of the giant mesh, like a rare butterfly. They let you nestle up among their fingers, held you to the light, and murmured with a Mediterranean accent, ciao. The streets that have supplied you with all colors and sounds of life are in a parallel system to theirs. When you saunter down to the seaside, hands in pockets, local people approaching you with buckets of olives and sardines cannot actually meet you, as if you were walking past this place. At different times of day, they indulge in their neon nights while you embrace your sapphire days. Gradually, you turn from strangers to dancing partners, lovers, and then rivals. In the revelry of darkness, growth curves of everything are invisible, but to the stars they appear as emerald waves, rising from feebleness to robustness, soaring marvelously and then plunging, increasingly close to zero. Just as what the frequency of prime numbers reveals. They end up in decay, you end up in solitude, you are destined to be the last celestial body over 7,000 miles of graveyards. Voiceover 1. When you glanced away beyond tracks of time, suddenly he came into view, emerging from underneath the surface of the ethereal, gleaming with vigor and tenacity. Those attributes of his do not perish with the body or even with the soul. He is incarnated everywhere in weather, energy, and even Zen. A roots, stems, leaves theory could never demystify the origin of him or the canopy above, which could be traced back to Hadean time. Voiceover 2. Compared to the entire history of time, phantasmagoric voices rustling through those lines are nothing but drops of liquid and vascular bundles of the universe. Ears which hear them would turn away shyly, like autumn leaves. When there drips out mercury, whoever its sound reaches will be doomed. Voiceover 3. It has been kept secret that the fate of the human race had long been predicted by the final scale, the convex meniscus rose to. And this poem ends with this photograph, just so you can see that. So I'm going to read next A Day Among Unacquainted, 32-bit color depth. That's what I'm going to read next. 32 color depth. So here it is. An announcement. The color test system has been activated. This is the first warning. Please return to your rooms. Have you noticed it? What we are in is not a hotel. The scarlet velvet couches, dark golden carpets, and chandeliers are but a camouflage. This is an institution. It seems other buildings are only a green belt away, but you can never take a step outwards. Eyes blood red. He grasped a glass of depth charge from the trolley and gulped it down. A piece of cloth was clipped to the board, sent to your room. Purple, neatly cut. Why is purple a possible outcome? A jacaranda tree by the window sprayed sparks in the storm, scratching the sky and made it bleed. What kind of personality are you, red or blue? They are diffused into each other this very moment. Look at these pieces of porcelain. They are neutralizing one another, their outlines mixing. A spindle-shaped vase and a napkin box mixed into some scallop-shaped ware. Moving, rustling on the boundary between light and shadow. A hypocrite lobby manager and a grumpy woman mixed into the sullen guest in room 1037. The last person stepping out of the elevator adhered to the wall like a potato wrapped in candied floss. Help, she cried, but there was nothing you could do. The outlines of everything were opening up towards the infinite, while borderlines between colors shattered. This company, emerging from nowhere, has pronounced they're breaking the bottleneck of Photoshop by successfully making 32-bit pictures, which is definitely an astounding breakthrough. A gradient has replaced a color atlas. Veronica's irises are like the grand prismatic spring, emerald in the middle, garnet on the outer ring, and mustard at the edge. Men drown in them described them as a crescendo of hues in which he witnessed his own soul being detached from his flesh. Window frames shimmered with mercury luster. They drew the curtains wide and felt the world outside. Super 5-star luxury and illustration. In the year 2023, we opened outlines of objects. Those are letters written on the scrolls, hanging from the top of this skyscraper. You were born and imprisoned in such a picture, brighter than you were in your previous life, but remained odorless. I'm going to repeat those last two lines, not because Yin Xiaoyuan does, but because I want to repeat them, because I like them. So here they are again. You were born and imprisoned in such a picture, brighter than you were in your previous life, but remained odorless. The last poem I will be reading by Yin Xiaoyuan is of course, the poem which, of course, Dee has set as a song. And I don't mind saying that it is itself, once again, a poem that moves in the direction of the surreal, and it has a longer title than what we've actually given it as a song, or Dee has given it as a song. So here's the full title: Alternating Current, Either Turbulent or Serene. Alternating Current, Either Turbulent or Serene. And I got to show you the pages here, these two pages. It's just, so here's the poem, and of course, I'm sorry for my low tech here, there's the photograph accompanying it. So all the way from Beijing, woo! I love it, all the way from Beijing, here it is. Alternating current, either turbulent or serene. On the beach you asked the man in grayish windbreaker, how do you define the will? He drew a sin wave with his finger in the sand, then wiped it away with waves at his command. A cap full of vinegar and seething calories of vegetables in your stomach, turning and burning, gave you the illusion of snakes slithering away somewhere behind. Last night on your way home, There was a repeat of the scene in which she refused to allow you to touch her rain-drenched violin. Keep your distance. Am I clear? Only one of the strings is the zero line. You just can't tell which. She smiled weirdly and ran upstairs. The string which snapped during the performance dragged along behind her was as thick as a tow rope. Confused, standing still there, you tossed a coin into the air and heard it droning fast, with strong and weak beats alternating, a downpour and a flood, overflowing in different directions. 14 days are needed to dry your nets and clear all water level data, landforms, temperature, light from above, and your masculinity will be turned inside out like a coat on the other side of the globe. So again, this is poetry by Yin Xiaoyuan, phenomenal, internationally renowned, translated into practically every language there is, and absolutely a poet who is just enthused by beauty, enthusiastic about beauty. And I think that is proven by the way in which her book has been put together, her collected poems from just incredible design. Look at that! Holy smokes! Holy smokes! That's what we want. So collected poems, 2013 to 2019. Anna Yin is with us this evening, also a phenomenal poet based in Mississauga, and the former poet laureate of Mississauga. And I believe that she is going to be playing a video that Yin Xiaoyuan has sent of herself, reading some poetry, and then we'll hear the song by Dee Dee.
Hi there, this is Chinese poet Yin Xiaoyuan. I'm very happy to read this poem for you. 香冠线，真实而确切，花与盐霜，富于交织低垂的晴空，游弋于茶绿色群岛的船只，但浑圆的世界为何有折痕？在你与他之间，棱线。不同于山脊或屋脊，笔直的不毛之地，这里重力实验纷纷失效，地磁消失，宛如从手心遁逃的白昼之光。你梦见过地球背面，百慕达拖着相互绞缠的巨大线缆下沉，电光四溅，其中一条拖曳过这附近。地磁，邻居的小孩说。海底一定是斑马花纹的，带着条带状磁异常的讯号。你把它赶回家。你刚看完老电影《楚门的世界》，与逝者恍然交错的伤痕还未及从后背上消失。无需深究，这里与对面几乎扭转150度的童子山头，并非基于同一重力体系，更非同一经纬系统。并非将每个人锁在圆面延伸而虚拟出的圆满球体，而是大小形体相互镶嵌所形成的巨大聚集堆。可以像蹲下抚摸一只猫，俯视那些长成山体的尖角。正四面体与曲面体之间的凹痕，不是星体撞击留下的创伤，你们唯一的分歧，像一个黑色的蝴蝶形。隐藏在山形与河滩之间。Thank you.
Wow, and I have to say, she had to come. She was able to leave lockdown briefly, to be able to make that video for us just last week. So, and what a wonder! I've never heard her read before. Never heard her speak before, actually. So all our interaction has been by email in English, of course. And so what a stunning presentation. Yeah, there are very few people I know like her who are just so drenched in notions of what is beauty, what can be beauty. And so in that sense, I mean, I describe her as being surrealistic, but she's also a little bit of a romantic, maybe with the capital R, like a Walter Pater kind of romantic in terms of her dedication and commitment to the beautiful. I think we should now hear Dee Dee's rendition of Alternating Current, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about this great presentation, this extremely important and fine poet out of China. And what a blessing it is to have her with us in this way this evening.
Okay, yeah, let me go ahead and play it and speak more about it afterwards, after people have had a chance to hear it. But here we go.
On the beach, you asked the man in grayish windbreaker, how do you define the will? He drew a sine wave with his finger in the sand, then wiped it away with waves at his command. At his command. A cap full of vinegar and seething calories of vegetables in your stomach, turning and burning, gave you the illusion of snakes slithering away somewhere behind. Last night on your way home, there was a repeat of the scene, yes, of the scene, in which she refused to allow you to touch her rain-drenched violin. Keep your distance, am I clear? Only one of the strings is the zero line. You just can't tell which. Yes, you can't tell which. She smiled weirdly and ran upstairs. The string which snapped during the performance dragged along behind her was as thick as a tow rope, confused, standing still there. Still there. You tossed a coin into the air and heard it droning fast with strong and weak beats alternating, a downpour and a flood overflowing in different directions. 14 days are needed to dry your nets and clear all water level data. Landforms, temperature, light from above, and your masculinity will be turned inside out like a coat on the other side of the globe. Of the globe. And your masculinity will be turned inside out like a coat on the other side of the globe.
Woo! Yeah! Crazy, wonderful, marvelous. Oh my golly. Woo! Wow.
Thank you, George.
Man, what was going on? What was in there?
Well, that was a fascinating poem. I mean, all of her work was quite fascinating, and I think you captured it by describing it in part, at least, as far as the surrealism, and especially this poem, the alternating current idea of the different moods and trying to reflect that clearly in the music. But you know, the words also explore this tension of sexual identity and this transgender aspect of things, and But then it's also irreverent and whimsical and playful and stream of conscious. And so I don't know. I just tried to find a way to place those words into a context where I could try to explore some of those things, but still make it, presentable as a song, in a certain way.
Well, this song was yet another, like you've given us such a variety of pieces tonight. And I don't even really know where to place this one, except of course it's very much you, as everything has been that we've heard. And I know it is jazzy, absolutely. But there was something going on there rhythmically that was quite stunning. The percussiveness of the playing was...
It's a little off kilter too, as some of you who might have been counting the meter will have noticed that it was in 7/4 time. So a little slightly irregular, not crazy. So to reflect, again, the nature of the lyrics to me.
Well, I know the evening is getting on, so I'll ask Jovial if she'd like to comment.
Yes, people say lost in translation, which I agree. Um, you know, Chinese characters usually have just one syllable, but English words usually will have at least two syllables, right? So I believe I have not read the Chinese version of Alternating Currents, but I guess when it is translated into English, the rhyme and the rhythm gets changed a little bit. But fortunately, it seems like, George, you mentioned Didi's song is so stunningly rhythmic. I believe Didi's song actually make up for some of the things that gets lost in the translation. So yeah, Didi, I really feel grateful that your music actually interprets this poem perfectly. And with that, I also want to say, actually, I think poetry is universal, but it seems that music is even more universal.
I just want to say amen once again to those sentiments, those comments. And it's so wonderful again to have to hear a poet speaking in Chinese, and then to have the English translation, and then to have this pianist composer, African Canadian, Chinese Canadian, together in one beautiful being, finding the way to talk about and to set music to this poem about so many things: confusion over identity, sexual identity, other kinds of identity, but at the same time, using art to tell the art, as we've heard throughout all of these pieces tonight. So just glorious, really.
Well, thank you again, George, for asking us all to participate. That's delightful. But we have one more, don't we?
Oh yeah.
Well, you almost forgot. It's your own poem there, George.
Well, I mentioned earlier this evening, and I'm really pleased to be able to share this poem with everyone. It's from this book, so I may as well advertise this book, Lasso of the Wind, Aurelia's Verses and Other Poems. Aurelia is my daughter, who is now about to turn 24, God willing, not next month, July actually. And I put this book together for her when she was, I think, 14, 15, something like that. And it was only published in 2013, but it's basically rhymes. It is partly a children's book, because you can see it's got all of these, like, it is a picture book, and it's got all these illustrations and so on. They're beautiful, by Susan Took, who won an award for the illustration. So here's some more. But I actually intended for this book to, while it's aimed at people between the ages of 7 and 12, to appeal to everyone. There we go. Now there's an image of Cupid fighting with a vampire bat, which is exactly what you want to have for Valentine's Day, at least for some of us. And so I wanted to give Aurelia a special present for her 23rd birthday last year. So I asked Didi to compose music for this poem, which is towards the back of the book, which deals with identity as well. And it's about understanding oneself to be beautiful and important. As I think, like most of us, here's the illustration. Like most of us, my daughter, and I'll even say myself. So it's not, the focus is not only on her, but and I will say probably all of us have had those issues about trying to understand who we are, and coming to terms with that at various points in our lives. And so I was in Nova Scotia and I saw a field of daisies. It was 2012, and this poem wrote itself. It just wrote itself. I was on the grounds of Acadia University in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, and I saw this field of daisies, and all of a sudden this poem came to me. It's very simple. It's been reprinted a couple of times, which is nice. And the title of it I gave, it's not titled in the book, but I've given it the title of Self-Composed. So here it is, and it rhymes, as every proper children's book should do, in rhyme. Well, actually, I'm not going to read that poem first. I'm going to read one other poem first, and then I'll read this one, and then we'll hear Dee Dee's song, because I just want to read it because it's just fun, and I could have read something serious this evening, but I don't want to. I want to read something that's just for fun, and so on. So, keeping in mind that it is a children's book after all. Well, again, it's for all ages. But something that's just light, and fun. And I should have found the page already. Now I know it's in here. Sorry for taking up our time trying to leaf through the pages to find where this poem is. I know that you're thinking he should just have a table of contents. I know. Oh, here it is. I found it. I'll give you here's the illustration by Susan Took, who's a artist in Nova Scotia, and so. It's meant to be a kind of surrealistic poem. Well, actually, no, not surrealistic, just fanciful. And so here it is. I call it Byzantium. No apologies to William Butler Yeats. Blow trumpet, beat a drum, enter Byzantium. Princesses dance and sway like palm trees all the day. Roses so red they scald, nod near rivers emerald. Pirates each rat eye a gleam, drowned deep in chocolate ice cream. Brooding copper and big, the figment of a fig. The sun surrenders soon, that vivid pearl the moon, so bright fires freeze to ice, and diamonds turn to rice, pudding a Milky Way, or sugar star display. All saints know your duty, sorrow clouds up beauty. Blast, trumpet, bang a drum, enter Byzantium. Blast, trumpet, bang a drum, enter Byzantium. And now I'll just read that poem, self-composed, and once again, Susan Took's image for it. And here it is, very simple, very straightforward. It's today that I can see daisies play at being me. Beaming gold, they bend and sway, limber, bold, anarchic, gay, holding out their leaves like hands. They don't shout or make demands. They're quiet, quite, but not shy. Their riot is their beauty. If I seem a weed to some eyes, I dream, and flower I am. So that's the poem I asked Dee Dee to compose.
That was the first one too that I wrote of all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. As a gift for Aurelia. Oh, one more thing before you play the video, I just have to show Susan Took's drawing of my daughter when she was a baby. For crying out loud. Sorry, I don't get to be, the doting father all that often, but this is based on the photograph of when she was just born, July 14, 1998. So there she is. I thank Susan Took for that image of her. So now,
yeah, let me play. I love hearing you rhyme, George. I remember when we did Trudeau, and I shamelessly asked you to go back and just rhyme stuff, and you went back and you just like completely added rhymes to everything, just incredibly fast and fluidly, and did a whole different version. But this actually, among all the poems, is the only one that does intrinsically rhyme, so it was kind of a fun thing to explore. But anyway, let me play it. Self-composed. I'm going to mute.
It's today that I can see daisies play at being me, beaming gold, they bend and sway, limber bold, anarchic gay, holding out their leaves like hands. They don't shout or make demands. It's today that I can see daisies play at being me. They're quiet, quite, but not shy. Their riot is their beauty. It's today that I can see daisies play at being me, beaming gold, they bend and sway, limber bold, anarchic gay, holding out their leaves like hands. They don't shout or make demands. It's today that I can see daisies play at being me. If I seem a weed to some eyes, I dream and flower
well, I'm biased, but I like it. Jovial.
I like it too, George. And I think what a nice gift it is from a father to a daughter.
Thank you.
It's heart melting.
Thank you. Wow. And thank you, Dee Dee. Woo!
Thank you, George, for asking me to do this. It was such a delight.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I love that other poem too that you just recited.
Oh.
So rhythmical. So it's
Yeah. Well,
lends itself also to, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to, you know what? We always do this. When we do the 5 poets breaking the song, we always go over time. We're not supposed to, but we always do because we have so much fun and we just love it so much. And I'm just so happy that East and West Learning Connections stands with us, and everybody seems to enjoy this so much. And we'll do another one later in the year. So yes, I'm sort of like winding down the evening for us, but we're not completely done yet. We're not. I do want to invite the poets to unmute and come back in, and I want to. I hope I'm going to try to surprise Jovial, whose birthday it is today, to let us join Dee Dee, who will lead us in singing "Happy Birthday" to you, Jovial.
Wow, thank you so much.
It's going to be an internet. Normally I would play it on the piano, but notwithstanding how it looked in those videos that I did earlier, I'm wearing like a little thumb brace right now, so unfortunately I can't do that. And as far as everybody singing together, Zoom latency, it's going to be a bit of a mess, but everybody ready? Happy birthday
Wow,
to
thank you so
you.
much.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to you. Happy birthday, dear Jovial. Happy
Happy birthday to you.
Wish I could play it on the piano instead. Yay!
Thank you so
Jovial.
much, everyone. Thank you. What a pleasant surprise. Actually, I feel I'm fortunate that I can attend tonight's poetry workshop. It actually is already a perfect gift for me. I don't think there can be any celebration better than that for me to spend the night of my birthday with so many talented poets and also Didi, the great musician. Thank you so much.
Jovial, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your special day with us.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. Thank you.
To do that. Yeah, so I think we should just I'm going to ask anybody who'd like to say anything or ask a question or whatever. I mean, let's take the next 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll call it a night. So, and let me thank Yang as well. Once again, East and West Learning Connections. Let me thank Anna Yin as well for all the technical proficiency. And I also want to thank all the poets. Gee whiz, what a great night once again. And yes, we're going to do this again. And I hope we can do it live, as we've done it once live last fall. So maybe we can do it live again later this year at a venue here in Toronto. But please, anyone who would like to make a comment or add something, please do. The floor is yours.
Mhm. And George and our poet, host, and musician here, I just wanted to thank you so much. I wanted to use some words from the poets to say something. Thank you for bringing those murmurs in the sky. That's the poet's call from somewhere existing or none. And that's the singer singing outside of our window. That's the bum bum bum, but it's not from Lucio's Little Italy. It's from Didi's piano, shooting at our hearts and turn them into flowers. So we trip over the wind on this evening, and we fall for poetry, music, roses, ice creams, and one another. Thank you very much.
Yang, thank you.
Wow, that's a collage poem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all your words.
Beautiful, beautiful, Yang.
Thank you.
Thank you, George, and thank you, East and West Learning Connection. Really wonderful, magical night. So much fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
I'd like to add my thanks as well. Just brilliant. Just such a lovely evening.
Yeah, so enjoyable.
Yeah.
and hoping I can meet everybody in person sometime. I'm desperate to get back to Canada. In fact, I might even drive up to Ottawa next weekend for a family thing. So
Yeah,
George, we got to do it in Toronto.
Yeah, Didi, you gotta join us like on another session to share your